Welcome back to the channel, everyone. If you're a fan of 90s performance cars with real character, stick around, because today, we're diving deep into one of the most underrated hot hatches of its time, the 1995 Volkswagen Corrado VR6. And not just any Corrado. This one's got something special, finished in a rare and eye-catching sand color that gives it a totally different vibe than the more common reds, blacks, or greens. This is a car that defied its own brand's image when it came out. While VW was known for reliable, sensible family cars, the Corrado said, "Let's do something different." It was sporty, sleek, and packed with innovation. A halo car that few people really understood back in the day, but over time, it's gained a cult following. And when you add in the VR6 engine, a compact six-cylinder marvel, this car truly becomes a hidden gem from the past. In this video, we're going all in. We'll take a close look at the exterior styling, explore the cabin's quirks and features, dive under the hood to break down what makes the VR6 engine so special, and of course, talk about how it drives and what it costs to buy one today. So grab a coffee, sit back, and let's explore what makes the 1995 Volkswagen Corrado VR6 such a standout machine, even 3 decades later. Exterior. First impressions count, and when it comes to design, the Corrado walks a very fine line between sharp and smooth. Unlike the boxier shapes of earlier Volkswagens, the Corrado's body is much more fluid, almost coupe-like, with a hatchback rear. It was penned by Herbert Schaefer, and it shows. There's a clear attention to detail in the proportions. The nose sits low, with slightly tucked-in headlights that are framed by an integrated grille and a clean, purposeful bumper. This particular car stands out because of its sand-colored paint. A hue that wasn't a common factory option, and as a result, gives the Corrado a kind of retrofuturistic aesthetic today. It's not loud like a red, and not stealthy like a black. It lands somewhere in the middle, understated, classy, and somehow makes the Corrado's lines pop even more. You've got flared wheel arches, crisp character lines running down the sides, and 15-inch factory BBS Solitude alloy wheels that complete the look. The rear end is classic Corrado, a wide tailgate, subtle spoiler integrated into the deck lid, which, by the way, automatically rises at higher speeds for downforce, and bold rectangular taillights. No fake vents, no unnecessary chrome. Just pure, focused 90s design. And here's a cool detail. The Corrado was one of the few cars of the time to feature an active rear spoiler. It rises automatically at around 45 miles per hour and lowers again below 15 miles per hour, or you can manually activate it with a switch. It's functional, it's nerdy, and it's very, very cool. Step inside the Corrado and you're immediately transported back to a very specific era in car design, the mid-90s, where ergonomics were getting better, materials were improving, and the tech was just beginning to evolve, but everything was still very analog. The door opens with a satisfying thunk, and once inside, you'll find deeply bolstered sport seats, cloth or leather, depending on spec, that hug you tightly without being too firm. The driving position is low, almost coupe-like, with a thick 3-spoke steering wheel that feels fantastic in your hands. In typical VW fashion, the controls are laid out sensibly, with a big, clear gauge cluster front and center. Now, let's talk about that dashboard. It's functional and straightforward, with big rotary HVAC knobs, classic red and blue temp indicators, and a no-nonsense layout. Everything feels purposeful. You won't find touchscreens here, but what you do get is a real sense of mechanical engagement. The buttons click, the vents rotate with resistance, and the gear shifter feels like it's connected directly to the transmission. And speaking of shifters, the Corrado VR6 came with a 5-speed manual gearbox as standard, with short throws and a nicely weighted clutch. It's the kind of car where you want to row through the gears just for the fun of it. The rear seats. Let's be honest, they're tight. Usable in a pinch, but mostly a place to toss a jacket or bag. That said, the rear hatch area offers decent cargo room for a weekend getaway or a run to the grocery store. And the hatch glass gives great rear visibility, something you don't always get with sporty coupes. One more point worth mentioning, build quality. This was Volkswagen at its peak. The doors, the switchgear, the trim, it all feels tight, solid, and durable. Many Corrados have racked up serious mileage and still feel factory fresh inside. Performance. Now we get to the heart of the matter. What makes the Corrado VR6 so special isn't just how it looks or feels, it's what's under the hood. The VR6 engine was groundbreaking in its time. Volkswagen designed it as a compact 6-cylinder that could fit in the engine bay of a car originally intended for 4 cylinders. It uses a very narrow 15-degree angle between the cylinder banks, allowing it to use a single-cylinder head, unlike a typical V6. The result? A motor that's smoother than an inline-4, more compact than a traditional V6, and capable of delivering a distinct, throaty growl. In the 1995 Corrado VR6, you got a 2.8-liter version making around 172 horsepower and 177 lb-ft of torque. Those numbers might not sound like much by today's standards, but back then, they were impressive. And in a car that weighed just over 2,800 pounds, the performance was more than adequate, it was thrilling. 0 to 60. Around 6.5 to 7 seconds depending on conditions. Top speed. Just under 140 miles per hour. But the real story is how the VR6 delivers its power. It's got torque everywhere, low-end grunt, a smooth mid-range, and a top end that sings as you get near the red line. Handling-wise, the Corrado VR6 benefits from a well-balanced chassis. It has independent suspension at all 4 corners and a wider track than the earlier G60 models. The steering is precise, nicely weighted, and gives you solid feedback through the wheel. On tight roads or flowing curves, it feels composed and confidence-inspiring. Sure, it has some front-end weight thanks to the VR6 being mounted up front, but thanks to good suspension tuning and a relatively short wheelbase, it remains agile. And that active rear spoiler? It genuinely helps with stability at speed. Braking is also solid, with 4-wheel discs and ABS. This was a car that could go fast, and stop fast, long before those specs were common across the board. Pricing and value. So what does it cost to get into a Corrado VR6 today, especially one in a rare sand color with solid history and original parts? That's where things get interesting. For a long time, the Corrado was one of those forgotten cars, beloved by a niche group, but not commanding big prices. That started to change. As collectors and enthusiasts look back at the 90s with more appreciation, cars like the Corrado have surged in value. A rough or high mileage example might still be found in the $6,000 to $9,000 range, but expect to spend $15,000 to $20,000 for a clean, well-maintained one. For rare colors like this sand finish, plus lower mileage and full service records, you could be looking at $25,000 or more, especially if the car is mostly original. It's still cheaper than many of its 90s contemporaries like the BMW E36 M3 or Audi S2 Coupe, but it won't stay that way forever. Parts availability is decent, though some VR6 specific bits are becoming harder to find. Maintenance isn't too expensive, especially if you do the basics yourself, but like any older European car, it pays to be proactive. From a collector's standpoint, the Corrado VR6 is right at that sweet spot, old enough to be vintage, rare enough to be special, and new enough to drive every day if you want to. Insurance is reasonable, and in many states, you can qualify for classic plates. Final thoughts. The 1995 Volkswagen Corrado VR6 isn't just a cool old car, it's a milestone in Volkswagen history. A car that dared to challenge expectations, that offered serious performance, real engineering innovation, and timeless design, all wrapped in a sleek, compact body. In this rare sand color, it's even more unique. It stands apart from the crowd not just because of its shape or engine, but because it embodies an era when cars were built with a kind of analog soul that's becoming increasingly rare today. If you've ever dreamed of owning a piece of 90s automotive heritage, something that's fast, fun, practical, and just the right kind of obscure, the Corrado VR6 should absolutely be on your radar. Thanks for watching this in-depth review. If you enjoyed it, hit that like button, subscribe for more classic and modern car content, and let me know in the comments, have you ever driven a Corrado? Or maybe you own one? I'd love to hear your stories. Until next time, drive safe and stay inspired.